Okay. Well, I think an Ideas Festival is a great idea. So I'm really pleased to be here to do this and also to take advantage of the time. So yes, I'm MJ Williams. This is my horn, the trombone. And the trombone, I have played the trombone since I was in 5th grade. And yes, there are lots of trombone jokes, but I don't know any of them because every time I hear them, I immediately forget them. So I'm going to do kind of a two-pronged thing. I'm going to talk about actually horn playing, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the community of music. So the trombone is an indefinite pitch instrument, similar to the voice. With violins, cellos, you don't have stops like you do or frets like you do on a guitar. But the trombone is the most voice-like instrument to my mind. So I'll show you what. I'm sure you know this, but this is what indefinite pitch is all about. Well, there's quarter tones, there's half tones, there's whole tones, it's all there. And it's just on a sliding scale. So as a young musician, how do you get from sliding scale to this? Well, as the old joke goes, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. So that was my beginning as a young horn player. I started singing after horn playing, after I took up the horn. But it's a long, slow, frustrating process. But throughout a lifetime of doing it, it has opened more and more worlds to me. I have a quote from a guy who wrote a book entitled Harmonic Experience. And he talks about young people when they first start playing. And he says, I got the thing right here. It is natural to want to do something musical right away. But as you develop, you begin to hunger for what is beneath the surface, for the practices and concepts that deepen and widen your range of perception. And so that's why being a lifelong musician affords you many, many worlds. I grew up in Helena. I was exposed to jazz at a very early age. My father was a trombone player, and I heard music from outside of my home culture, which really spoke to me. So that exposure was life-altering, and it's had a lot to do with where I've gone in the world and what I have done with my life. And one of the most important features, I think, about music and about community life is listening and being able to hear other people, other sounds, the sounds of nature. And what I discovered as a youngish person was that it's a practice. You don't just learn how to listen. You don't just learn how to see. You don't just learn how to hear. You have to expose yourself to the practice of really trying to listen. So when that happens in music, it's a very exciting thing because in an ensemble, you are playing with 2 or 3 or 5 or 15 other people. What you're doing is kind of a double activity. You're listening to yourself and you're listening to the other players around you. And that creates another universe, actually, to live in. that's what it feels like to me. So when I'm playing with other people, I'm always listening to what they're doing, and that's a guide for me to take it in a different direction or make a swerve or a curve, and that's kind of on the precipice of what is the most exciting thing that I do in my life. And so in thinking about this and community, I keep calling up this image of learning discrete forms. Jazz is my milieu. I've played some classical music. I've tiptoed into other genres. But what I've come to later on in my life is the point where I'm able to let the form go and just listen. And that information that I'm getting as a listener comes from everywhere. It comes from nature. It comes from mechanical noises outside my window. It comes from, thinking in my own brain. And it is, at that point, it's an opportunity to just relax and not worry about form and not be judgmental about the sounds that I'm making, but to step into a universe of ideas, unformed ideas. And I think why I love this so much is because I think we're living in a time when we really need to do that more. We really need to be more open thinkers and less judgmental thinkers, and that is also a practice. I've had some bitter lessons in community about not being a good enough listener, about not being someone who could really hear what was happening in the room. So I always turn back to music, and that kind of reifies that point of view. So I was going to just play a little bit, but what I wanted to do is, if you guys, at some point, if I could get a little audience participation, I would love it. So I'm going to do a little improv on the horn, because that's the most comfortable place for me to be. And just would also like to say that I'm really happy to be here today to listen to people express their ideas, and that there are people in this community that do listen and they do hear, and they're willing to come forth and practice this great community art of being together and communicating. So, thank you. I could do that all day. well, you all drift off into the woods, which would be just fun. But some people call that free music, and to my mind, it's improvisational music. And improvisational music demands a lot of focus, a lot of very. It requires both focus and attention, and a lot of practice. And this is another lovely quote from W.A. Matthau, who has written a book called Harmonic Experience. The musical spirit is flying free, but it has been shaped by the work of the mind. So again, we're talking about practice. So I think I want to, I probably have talked enough, but what I'd like to do with you, I've done this with students, and it's just a chance to, I call it holding a tone while listening. And so what I'd like to ask you to do is just think in your mind of a tone. If you can hear it, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. But then when I direct you, I would love this if you would just sing the note out and hold it for as long as you can. And if you need to take a breath and hold it a little bit longer, that's fine. And the point is, once you have the note, don't change it. If you hear your neighbor singing another note, just keep your note. And then listen to your neighbor's note. So, you want to try it? Okay. So, what you need to do is just take a really deep breath, and then we'll all start together and do it as long as you can, and as loud as you can. Well, you can do it however you want to do it. Okay. Take that deep breath. Oh, that's lovely. Did you hear that? You want to try it again? Let's try it again. Go ahead. Just, step into this. Okay, deep breath. Fabulous. So you guys have just sung the first chord of the Jefferson County improvisational cooperative opera. And thank you so much for being here.